I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. It is a lovely day here in New York City. I feel bad for my co-host, Andrew Kuo, though. He is scalded with marks all over his arms. He was a grill master over the weekend. Andrew, how are you surviving after being the official grill master of your own home?
Oh, smoke! It's so much smoke, man. I was back there engulfed in the fumes of cooking food and charcoal and opinions about Michael Jordan and dogs and wanting it more. Man, how does this happen to good people, man? I'm just chilling at my own house, celebrating the birthday of one of my best friends, and all of a sudden I have tongs in my hands.
You have made fun of the boomer with the tongs, the novelty apron. It says something about Italians and kissing. And here you are, flipping the white hots, the Zweigels on the grill.
Oh, it was
How far you have fallen.
Sucked, man. It sucked, but no one else wanted to do it. So I had to reach deep down into my boomer DNA, got that X-ray. It's got those skirt steaks in them, and I had to do it right, man. I had my temperature thermometer out there. I had, obviously, temperature thermometer. I had my tongs. I was grilling on bricks and like a metal grate, and I fucking
Wait,
nailed
were
it,
you
man.
were you going asymmetrical? Like, did you have direct heat, indirect heat? Were you doing like the full routine out there?
I'm not sure what that means because I'm not a grill master, but there were hot spots and cold spots on the grill. Is that what you mean?
Like by intention?
Well, first of all, I'm very cheap, so I didn't buy enough coals, so it was unintentional. But I know it works because when you cook in a wok, and that's the whole premise of it, right? There's hot and cold spots.
Yeah, I would say that's true. I mean, in grill master parlance,
Tell me.
you would have direct and indirect. So if you wanted to put, say, ribs on there, you don't want them on the fire
No.
for hours on end because they'll just burn to a crisp. So they would be somewhere with like a more ambient heat, the same way that you would get from being in an oven versus being like on a burner.
Right.
Very, very easy to understand concepts. There was a tweet that went viral actually like a week or two ago where someone was basically saying like, how much is there to grilling? And that person got roasted, no pun intended. And people were like, showing these incredible things they'd grilled and how many hours and what technique was involved. And I don't think that's incorrect. Like there is, of course, technique to cooking on the grill, but that's related to cooking in general as much as anything else, right? So would you say that you, not being a grill master, were able to adequately handle the tasks at hand despite your lack of experience?
It was tough fending off all the heat fans, being like,
Culture.
yeah, I want those white hots now. I'm like, oh, white hot culture's in the building, moving it from the cold spot of the grill into the hot part of the grill. I was alone out there. The party was inside, and it was a sandwich party, a fucking delicious sandwich party, with like good ingredients and good bread. And the chef, my friend, was like, "Quo, can you go back there and cook up these steaks for me to make sliced steak sandwiches?" I'm like, "No, but if no one else wants to do it, I'll sit out there and be the grill master I was meant to be." And I crushed it. I just really crushed it. But to your point, like, I remember when I used to be into grilling, like in college maybe, which is so funny because one time I had to take a photo at my buddy's apartment for Vice for some editorial about like Asians or whatever. They had like the same Rolodex, It's like, oh, cool, you're up for the Asian shoot this weekend. I'm like, all right. And I went to my buddy's house, and I remember that was the era where we were delinquents, And he lived in a famous party house, and I was like, yo, this place is a lot bigger. And it's like, oh, the shoot's on the roof. I'm like, oh, damn, barbecue season. And he looked at me with such scorn. He was just like, whoa, we don't cook food here. We party. I'm like, I don't know. You don't like, before the party, you don't like put on a couple hot dogs, some burgers. Like, you got an amazing roof in the East Village. And he was just like, you're a loser. 20 years later, he has like a sustainable farm upstate that people love. And I'm like, oh man, I got roasted all the way for it to come back for you to roast me with your delicious organic vegetables.
And a merch line.
And a merch line that you can get at
Dover Street Market.
Dover Street, that's right.
But I can't say I've done a lot of grilling as an adult outside when I first moved into a spot in Brooklyn that had roommates in a backyard. So we were in the age bracket when you had two roommates in a backyard, you might as well have a grill back there. So I guess that's like, that doesn't change. If you have outdoor space, you're going to use it. But I just have not had that kind of outdoor space, so it has not been my deal. I think the biggest issue is that I'm afraid to ruin things that are expensive out there. So like steaks are a little bit
Like Jalen
intimidating.
Brunson. Right.
You get like burgers, whatever, man. You flip them a couple times, they'll be done. Hot dogs, you get your white hots, you get your trash plate going easy. But that to me is the mark of a grill master, is being willing to destroy expensive meat on the grill in the name of your craft.
One time I was upstate and we had splurge on a steak. Very expensive. My friend's house with a beautiful grill out back. And I was like, I am not a grill master. I'm not a part of this culture. I don't want to I don't want any part of this because of the reason you mentioned. Like, I don't want to ruin this thing that we all decided was going to be a luxurious treat for us tonight. And I'm also a hater. So as this kind man was out there grilling this expensive steak, I was like, he's going to ruin it. It's going to be overdone. I should have just done it. I'm really pissed off. He comes in sheepishly being like, guys, I think I messed it up. I'm like, of course. You overcooked the steak. But he undercooked it, and it was delicious. He knew. He was like, I didn't want to overcook it. So I think it's under. And everyone was like, bravo.
Yeah, I think the most terrifying is fish. Someone's like, hey, I just got this $40 fish. Look at it. It's whole. We should put it on the grill. You're like, good Lord.
You can't do it. How the hell are you going to grill for it? Grill fish?
Bad news. It's stuck to the grill.
Yeah. Well, you have to cover it in tinfoil or buy one of those like doodads from Shark Tank,
And once you put it in tinfoil, what's the point? Just do it in the oven.
But you get that effervescent smoke flavor still.
Maybe a little bit, but if it's in foil, it's in foil.
I don't get it. When you grow the hell up, you realize like certain things, right? Like, your friendships are valuable. Sleep is more valuable than you can ever imagine. Staying in shape is valuable. And barbecues suck, man. Barbecues are just the worst.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just don't have any outdoor space. It hasn't been something that's been on my radar. But what is on my radar, we're going to stick to food because every podcast is two men talking about food. Where are the fava beans, Andrew?
Goddamn.
Where are they? It's that time of year. The asparagus is around. The snap peas are around. Where the fuck are the favas?
The Hannibal Lecter of vegetables, the dark underbelly of cuisine, the fava bean. I don't know why you're so fixated on fava beans, man. Last year, I think at this time, you were telling me you bought a ton of fava beans.
Yeah, I did do that. Mm-hmm. I bought 10 pounds of fava beans. I feel like I gave some away and then some rotted. I just didn't have enough dog.
Why the hell are you fixated on fava beans, though? How are you making these beans?
I think it's the scarcity. If they
Yeah,
if
what
they were
you
at
mean?
if they're at arm's reach all the time, I guess I wouldn't be into them. It's just the pursuit of the fava bean. I was lurking the Union Square Green Market IG hard yesterday, just looking for evidence. Who's tagged him? Show me not fava one, man. Zero favas.
Huh. And they're supposed to be in season. This is the time.
Yeah, like, this is around time. They're always like a late spring type of deal.
Because I seen those fiddlehead ferns. Those are out and
yes,
about.
Yes.
Those
Yeah,
are
you get the ferns, you get the ramps, duh, old news. Then it's like asparagus, strawberry, and I thought that favas would be hitting, but they aren't.
Okay, let's say the favas did hit. What would you do with them?
Oof. If they hit,
Yeah,
some fava puree.
that sounds
Fantastic.
nice. That sounds nice. You roast
Even
them
the-
first, right?
No.
Wait,
you
what?
gotta you boil them.
Oh, so you don't get color on them or anything? You don't like? Okay, that sounds good too.
You could, I guess, but basically, what I like about fava beans is the ritual of the fava. They come in these long, beautiful pods.
Not perfect. This is the perfect pod.
This is the perfect pod. They're a beautiful pod. Sometimes perfect, sometimes imperfect. Unlike this pod, which is always perfect. But they come in these big pods. You crack them open, and then they'll have maybe 4 or 5 of the beans inside, and they're quite large, like the size of a quarter, sort of, shaped like a bean, kind of like that specific kidney shaped thing. And then you boil those. And then you have to open those up, and there's like a little bit of technique to it. But once you get it, you can kind of hold it and pinch it, and they'll just like pop out intact.
And don't they have
Use
like
your
a
fingernail or a little knife? Yeah.
don't they have a tough part like a spine to the bean that you have to like strip away?
Well, no, it's just a seed covering. So it's basically you have to get them out of the pod, the imperfect pod, boil them, then you have to like shuck them kind of, and it's a lot of work for not that many beans, and that's part of the charm that you buy like 2 pounds of fava beans. It's this huge bag, and when you're done with all the husking and harvesting and boiling, you got like a little pile of beans.
This sounds alarmingly close to a white person meal.
I mean, it is certainly an Italian white person's meal.
Are Italians white? Has the
Sure.
internet decided that? Yes, right?
If we hadn't decided that Italians were white, we couldn't make fun of them.
Oh, okay. So they're definitely white.
Yeah, if they were like Italians are people of color, then we wouldn't be able to do our funny accents.
Is Waluigi white? The character, not the basketball player. Yes.
I mean-
yes. He's Italian, right?
I would suspect he's Italian, but he is vaguely Mediterranean. There's a lot of countries that touch around there.
I'm saying it's been debated before, but especially with the prejudice that the Italian Americans felt.
So you're wondering if
centuries ago.
Luigi is a POC?
Or more Waluigi.
Waluigi might be.
Yeah.
His nefarious backstory, really.
His sharpshooting from deep.
I guess the fava bean in Italy would be I guess they call it cocina povera, basically the broke boy food, that's what they call it.
Do you think its association with Hannibal Lecter hurt its brand or helped its brand?
It could only help, right?
I think so. Like lotion really had a spike when that movie came out, right? And baskets.
Yeah, but you know what's funny is like, this was the unpopular one though, right? It was Red Dragon, right?
No.
It wasn't.
I thought it was the original with Jodie Foster. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, that's the quote for sure. But was it from? Maybe it was from that one.
I mean, it puts the lotion in the basket is certainly from the first one.
It was Silence of the Lambs. You're right.
Red Dragon, also a very watchable movie.
I always get that one confused with the other one. There's like one has
Hannibal?
Edward Norton, and then there's Hannibal.
Right. How did
You know what's that?
How did
Sorry,
this-
go ahead. No, I want to hear what you have to say.
how did this LeBron James, this geriatric man, be so physically empowered? Like, it's like, don't leave 5 guards with this old British guy, and then he's like, their throats are slit, their guts are hanging out, they're like hanging from the rafters. I'm like, how did this man get that guy that high up? And then they're all artists, right? Like, so he makes a kind of a sculpture out of him. He puts like wings on him or something. Very impressive. LeBron James of psychopaths, as they say.
Yeah, I liked when like Wilford Brimley was a scary intimidator in the firm.
You left him alone in a room full of cops.
Like, how could you only had 10 cops and there's a decrepit old Englishman? What do you expect was going to happen?
They're all
cops
dead. They're all
cops are dead and hanging from the ceiling in artistic arrangements. So they're like origami cranes.
Yeah.
You know what's confusing about Red Dragon was that there was also the movie Manhunter. That was the exact same story that was based on the book Red Dragon and came out first, and was Michael Mann, and it was also good. And
it was not good. It was
the original
fine.
Manhunter.
It was fine.
It's pretty stylistic. It's Michael Mann.
Yo, speaking of old people and LeBron Jamesing their way through life, what's up with Michael Mann's 2 stars of the Heat having babies in their 80s, man? That's what Pacino and De Niro both announced that they're having children with their baby mamas.
I guess at that age, with that kind of wealth, you're just proving to people that you can still fuck. It's like, let me just get that out there. I need tangible evidence that I'm out here boning. People aren't going to believe it otherwise. I got to have kids.
So De Niro's like, you may think I cannot have an erection, but look, I impregnated somebody.
Here's the
I
proof.
created life, right? I'm bringing a human being into this world.
I may be an old Italian person who you can't leave in a room without all 5 police dying, but I'm virile.
I am Al Pacino. I dress like a pirate. But the thing I want you to know about me is I can still get a boner.
I mean, he was born in 1940.
Dude, insane.
I mean, he's up there.
He is up there for sure.
I mean, and he's letting us know.
Dustin Hoffman's just like, where's someone acknowledge my boner?
Well, have a kid. We need the proof.
Yeah, exactly. Have a loving relationship with someone younger than you and bear children, and then we'll believe that you can get an erection.
Other than that, Dustin.
Yeah. Other than that, we're clowning you forever, man.
Oh, man. Poor Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Can you imagine Tom Cruise as he gets older? Just furious. Like,
so many boner children.
So many boner children. It's wild. Children of boner. I mean, he's mad because they're giving away the big like IMAX theaters to Oppenheimer and Barbie, and he's like, yo, my Mission Impossible series deserves the respect of 4D technology.
Yeah, he's gonna fill those audiences with his boner children.
Oh no, it's the 4D, that's disappointing. I thought it was like a metaverse kind of thing, like a tripped out, mushroom out experience. It's just old guys and dongs.
Down 4 dongs, yeah. But you mentioned white people food.
Yes, that was.
And then you were talking about fava beans, which also I would not say is necessarily white people food, depending on if we're talking about people in the Middle East being white facing.
Wow.
Whole other discussions, as we were saying, about the Mediterranean. Lots of people eat fava beans.
I would say so. I would say if I saw a bunch of boiled fava beans, as you say, pureed into a sauce, put on a plate, I would say this is struggle food, man.
I mean, in Puglia, that's what they call them. They call fava beans, they call broccoli rabe, sausage. This is cucina povera.
Poor man's food, like puttanesca.
Exactly. Or the meal of the hooker. But white people food. Get back to. So I saw you were mentioning this on Twitter.
I retweeted it.
I saw this retweet and felt like you were making fun of white people.
Every chance I get, to be honest.
Oh.
No. was the show Barry about a basketball family, perhaps through the patriarch shot underhanded. Anyway, the tweet reads, I found out today on Chinese social media that there's a trending hashtag that translates to white people meals, LOL. Quote, I was so tired, I ate white people meal today, unquote. One of the hashtags is also, quote, white people meals are still meals. That's even funnier when you read it out loud. And it's a picture of a carrot wrapped in a sliced piece of American cheese, a bunch of ham on white bread, an open can of tuna and a cucumber, and a bunch of carrots on top of greens. And I gotta say, there has never been something more truthful.
I mean, everything you're describing, feels like it could be part of, I don't know, like, remember when restaurant Acme was really popular?
I DJ'd there quite a bit.
I mean, the upstairs, here's a little sliver of white fish with a white root vegetable in a small amount of broth.
Hey, that's your boy who ends up opening one of our favorite restaurants, right?
Oh, I mean, I don't know who the chef was there. Like the owner
yeah.
owns a lot of different properties around New York. I don't know who the actual chef was. But a lot of the white people meals do also seem more like making fun of the British for good reason.
This is a good point.
I just mean like spotted dick.
What's a spotted dick? Are we still talking about Al Pacino?
Age spotted dick. But yeah, the British food's like, okay, here's pickled eels, but also
that is not normal food though. That's a bad example. Jellied eels, you mean?
Isn't an Asian delicacy just like white rice with anchovies and cucumbers and peanut sauce? Isn't that the Malaysian? Oh, maybe there's an egg involved. Malaysian breakfast.
It's complicated, right? Because the anchovies are dried. Like there's a fermented.
I love that dish. I think it's delicious.
Yeah, they have a good version of it close to Dime Square. Capuchin is the name of the restaurant, maybe.
That's the spot. My pronunciation is right or wrong, or I forget. But that is specifically the place I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's awesome. I find that dish to be super complicated, but you know how they say every accusation is an admission. I got to admit, man, my go-to meals these days have been a thing of Ritz crackers and a tin of sardines over my sink. I'm not even joking. Because when you crack that tin of sardines, which I got for 99 cents on sale, it's messy as hell.
I like being in Paris, as one does, with your little tin of sardines, and they give you a lime and some butter and some bread. Mm-hmm. It's an excellent little breakfast.
I mean, this is like the third episode of every food show. Like, you probably think tinned fish is poor, it's like cheap, a lunchtime thing. But oh no, it's a delicacy in much of the world, like in Spain. But yeah.
True. We've reached the limit, the tinned fish threshold. Mm-hmm. We can't talk about this any further without risking imperfection, and I'm not just talking about fava bean pods.
I know we do walk the fine line of imperfection, but I gotta say, the white struggle food thing is hilarious because lunch is a travesty, and sometimes when I speak to my friends, I'm like, "What are you hungry for?" They're just like, "I don't know. Can we just go to like a wildly popular place like Jack's Wife Frida, or like the Butcher's Daughter? We gotta wait an hour in line." I'm like, "What are you gonna get?" They're like, a chopped salad and like a shot of ginger juice. I'm like, yo, it's hard to be white.
I'm always saying this.
Yeah.
It's a difficult part of the white struggle.
What?
I can't.
Lunch.
I couldn't say if this translates.
Yeah.
When you're hungry, but you don't know where, but you don't know where you want to eat, and you're just walking around, and you're getting demoralized. You go up to a place and the wait's too long, so you keep walking, and then you come up with another idea, and then you end up and you realize geographically you're getting further away from places where you like to eat. It's really a tough part of being white.
I mean, I think where white people fumble the bag most is breakfast, man. What the hell are you guys thinking you're doing for breakfast?
Look, a lot of that was my fault. That's on me. I was like, what if we just take milk and just pour it over like some grains? We'll call it cereal. That was me. That was kind of weird.
You're like the Joe Mazzulla of pancakes. It's like, it's on me. I wasn't ready for breakfast. I wasn't ready. It's on me.
Look, what I had was I had eggs and I had bacon and I had nothing else. Breakfast, boom.
So much of it hinges on maple syrup and butter, which is two incredible things. Don't get me wrong. But
where are you going with this?
Pancakes. I'm just like, they're fine. But the things I felt as a non-white person, the white person craves for breakfast are really odd to me. But the things I crave are really strange too, which is dumplings and spicy seafood noodle soups. And like, I don't know, in Taiwan they have like the wartime holdover for breakfast, which is like white bread toast, macaroni in chicken broth, ham sandwiches. That kind of stuff is like a lot of condensed milk. A lot of that stuff is still there in Taiwan. I've never enjoyed it, but it's weird how the white person's food has infiltrated my favorite country.
Tough luck, buddy.
I know.
That's on me too.
All right, what'd you have for breakfast this morning? I just want to know real quick.
It's too early. I didn't have breakfast. No, I mean we get up and we pod at the crack of dawn.
All right.
No time for flapjacks.
I shoved some of that Grill Master food in my face before we started recording. I was like, it's
sausages.
Here. It's like, these sandwiches.
Are you eating
delicious.
a sizzling steak fajita at 8 a.m.?
Yeah, barbecued food sucks, man. I mean, it stinks up your whole fridge. Your whole house smells like. Well, maybe that's a New York thing.
This is some weird Grill Master talk.
Other people would enjoy it.
Dude, we have to stop talking about food. You've infiltrated the white person's food market. You've exposed us.
All right.
I've been shamed for my breakfast choices. Can we move on to the topic of the day? The new smash hit HBO show, The Idol.
Is it where 5 performers get together and get grilled by a British person?
That's Spotted Dick too. More Spotted Dicks.
Yeah, in IMAX coming.
So The Idol. I watched it last night. I'm not a big TV buff, but I watched it because I wanted to discuss it on the pod. I can't. Well, if you haven't seen it yet, very briefly, it has Lily Rose Depp as a Britney Spears-esque pop star who is surrounded by people who may or may not have her best interests at heart. Even when they think they do, they may not necessarily, in actuality, have her interests at heart. A lot of yes people, and she meets The Weeknd, this mysterious, rapey figure.
Is he The Weeknd in the show?
I can't tell if he's a club promoter or supposed to be just a vampire. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
She meets him and then sparks this romance. That's kind of what's
and
going
he's
on.
not a singer. She's not like under his wing as a protege.
No. She is a huge star. She is Britney Spears.
Mm-hmm.
And the show features a lot of people you would recognize from being at, say, a Fashion Week party in New York or elsewhere around the planet. You've got Moses, who's the singer. I think his last name is Suri, something like that. He's recognizable. You've got, Hari Neff. You've got the comedian who is really popular on Twitter, who was in Bodies. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm looking at the IMDb right now. Rachel Sennott, is that how you say her name?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So it's this mix of people who are popular
Levy.
on social media,
Yeah.
and then you've got Lily Rose Depp and The Weeknd. So it's kind of a clout bomb of a show.
Sam Levinson, another Sam Levinson production, right? The guy who did Euphoria.
Yeah, the casting. I'm not saying the casting is bad per se. I'm just saying it is very intentional in that these people cast are like. A lot of them are not well-known actors. A lot of them are more known for being celebrities themselves. Mm-hmm. So my main takeaway on the first show, which I would not say was good, but that was not attributable to any of the actors necessarily being bad. Right. It just was boring. But I can't tell who they're trying to take the piss on here. Are they making fun of Hollywood? Are they making fun of components of Hollywood? Are they making fun of
social media?
Social media. There were some characters that were so loathsome early on, and these are mostly ancillary, that I was watching it and it was almost like difficult to watch because every character was annoying and shitty in a specific way that was seemingly designed to make fun of that kind of person or maybe even a specific individual in Hollywood. But it also came to my conclusion that watching loathsome characters who are annoying and like making fun of other people, maybe it's a vendetta, maybe it's just an idea, isn't that enjoyable.
Right. Like, I don't want to see Lily Rose Depp debate Skip Bayless about Tom Brady for like in the middle of a show. It's just like, it's distracting because you know Skip is just going to run roughshod over whatever take Lily Rose Depp has. But I see your point. The Idol leaves bait out there, just in its title alone, right? It's like, you know, I have trouble with a lot of meta stuff. I wish creators that I like Euphoria a lot. I wish it was kind of more committed to its own story and its own backbone of like a universe. And he claims that The Idol is in the same cinematic universe as Euphoria, and that got people pretty excited because it's a clever trick. Marvel does it, but also it expands the world of the characters we already like and know. So it's a good context to it. But The Idol, to your point, suggests that it is a commentary on something, and you're saying we can't really find where that is yet.
Right, because is this just a comedy? Or are we supposed to take it seriously? I can't tell. I mean, there are some scenes with The Weeknd that could only be interpreted as it being a comedy. Mm-hmm. But there is still an element of that being unclear, which is fine. Yeah. I think that sort of ambiguity can be entertaining, and you figure it out for yourself. Like, they don't need to telegraph everything. But he walks into a room and he's like smelling pillows. I'm like, that can only be interpreted as funny. Like, it's The Weeknd smelling a pillow. Yeah. But I will watch again. But I did read some criticism where like this is just such like a straight male version of this story, and it's like that critique is hard to dispel. It's basically just like Lily Rose Depp, who is, I think she's good in it. She's incredibly attractive. It's just basically her taking her clothes off constantly and having like sex or sexual fantasies. You don't see like The Weeknd's ass.
Let's get some, let's keep
this
fair.
There's no spotting dick. It's all, but it's just very much her being sexualized, whether it's on stage or in a photo shoot, or like she like comes home by herself and like starts pleasuring herself for some reason as soon as she walks in the door. But yeah, it's like a lot of like Lily Rose Depp just being naked, and again, she's attractive. It is, but I'm saying this is from the male gaze perspective.
And this is the criticism Sam Levinson started getting for Euphoria. I was thinking the other day, is David Lynch influential, or is David Lynch part of a genre? Like, a lot of the words you're using to describe this show, people use to describe Blue Velvet. Gratuitous, strange, like, even down to The Weeknd smelling pillows, like Dennis Hopper with the oxygen thing. It could be a call to that even. And, David Lynch also has, like, expressed his thoughts about nudity and the gays and did movies about that, Mulholland Drive and all this stuff. Incredible movie, actually. But, like, this sounds like either Sam Levinson is really influenced by David Lynch, or they're both part of the same mindset of doing something where the story is just drugs. I mean, David Lynch's movies were complex, right? Like, they were kind of, they were about the grill master. They were trying to break down kind of a generational idea of norms and codes and like, what's the right word? Not criminality, but like perversion, right? And it sounds like Sam Levinson would also say that this is what the show is about.
Would you say Euphoria is a comedy? I haven't really watched it.
I would not say that. I couldn't find that much satire in Euphoria at all. I thought that was a really earnest show. I think Sam Levinson's weakness is he's too damn earnest.
Well, that's what I'm curious about because, as I said, watching the show, it was really hard to tell if you were supposed to be acknowledging that this was all with a wink and it was making fun of even this premise, or if it was earnest.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I did hear when he got criticism for Euphoria being too gratuitous that he pulled back, being like, okay, you're right, like, we're going to change it up. But it sounded like he was frustrated, and then he went into this show maybe being like, I'm going to get all these people to agree to do the show I want. And maybe this show scandalizes you, and pearl clutchers will react in a certain way, but I'm here to shock you, and these are the things I'm interested in.
So here are some of the responses to the pilot episode. Despite the controversy, The Idol is mostly guilty of just being plain boring. CNN. HBO's The Idol offers stylish yet oddly inert debut episode. NPR. The Idol, HBO's controversial new series, is a mess. People. The Idol premiere provides no reason to continue watching. Consequence, some blog. Striking and sorting. Striking and sorted. The Idol comes close to a profound insight into our times. The Independent, offering their independent take. So that seems to be the general response. It is pretty sleazy. There's a lot of sex in it. I thought some of the stuff was kind of entertaining. I guess it maybe is a comedy. I don't know. I think the fact that it was a little dull was its most heinous crime, but it was kind of memorable. I mean, I haven't forgotten it, and I watched it 10 hours ago.
Yeah, like I watched all the Mandalorian and the last Ant-Man movie. I think
what are you doing over there?
Laundry, and I don't remember any of it. I remember parts of it. If you ask me what happened, I'd be like, oh, that's when he got small, and that's where he said this is the way, and then there was another small creature. To your point, like, not very memorable. I kind of want to pair this up with the next topic, which is like, it's problematic, right? The Hannah Gadsby show at the Brooklyn Museum, and Hannah Gadsby, comedian, who's not necessarily known for being funny. To your question of, is this a comedy? Is she a comedian? No one's quite sure. She kind of exists to me more as like a Henry Rollins spoken word essayist, but live, And Nanette was her hit stand-up that she did through Netflix, and in it, she talks about her life as an art historian and the problems that she has with art history and the legacy of certain artists like Van Gogh and Picasso, and how it's accepted and criticized through the male gaze. And maybe we should revisit those ideas because we're humans and we can do that thing. And maybe we would have a different idea of the greats, the geniuses that our society and civilization has produced. She's doing a thing I love, which is like, oh, this is your Michael Jordan? Let's really talk about it, Michael Jordan's still top 10.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty much the premise of our book.
Yeah, you're right.
The Joy of Basketball, which is phenomenal.
Yeah,
that's more or less the concept behind it, is reevaluating ideas that we've been told are true. And yet now you're a grill master. So, like, who can say people can't change?
I'm a grill master as much as I just accidentally won 6 championships out of 6 times. I didn't want to. It just fell into my lap. Am I a grill master? Yes. But am I a grill master? Nope.
You are a grill master because fate handed you the tongs.
Fate did hang me the tongs. But this ties into what you're talking about with the idol, because it's problematic. The show got roasted in the New York Times, I believe, in Art News, and Twitter. It is not being well received at all. And the criticisms are, we're not quite sure what Hannah Gatsby is going for. Is it a populist idea of creating something sensational, memorable, something to talk about as you're grilling steaks outside alone in your own thoughts, lost in the possibility that you might be turning into a grill master in your old age? Or is it actually bad? So when criticism comes out for a show like The Idol and people are like, it's boring. I know you're paraphrasing there. I do not enjoy that kind of critique. It doesn't really say much, and it creates expertise in a weird clouded form around the person who says it without much of expert opinions happening. But I think it could work both ways. The negative criticism towards it could galvanize people, maybe that this show is for, and be like, of course it's not for you. Everything is not for you. This is for me. Stay out of my business. I am the gatekeeper of the small thing, right? And I can imagine young people seeing The Idol and being like, old people don't get it. This is my generation. This is what we do. Or going to the problematic show and being like, oh, this speaks to me. You guys can worship your Picassos and Van Goghs all you want. I'm on some different shit. And I think both those ideas have to happen simultaneously for either of them to work.
I don't think young people would watch The Idol and say that's what my generation is like. Just because the characters are not that young. I mean, there are phones and things like that, but it does not feel as if it's making a comment on youth. Like, that may occur, but this is also what's interesting about the Hannah Gadsby thing. It's like the hubris to say, I'm going to take down Picasso.
I love it. Yeah.
Well, it's the same as when we talk about MJ or Kobe or whoever. You know, like, who are you? Well, I don't know. I might as well, though.
Yeah.
Like, there's always going to be this like idea of like credentialism. Like, who are you? And we'll talk more about basketball, obviously, in a little bit. But when Spo, said that Ramona Shelburne had like an untrained eye, and people were like, ha ha ha, he took her down. I'm like, I mean, he was just kind of being rude.
He's losing it. Whoever is in the room with him has to tell him to calm down a little bit, man. He's losing it a bit.
I thought, look, he was derailing that line of questioning, which would get into what his strategy was.
Yes,
and he didn't want to talk about that.
Yeah,
and that's fine.
Yeah,
but I did think him saying the untrained eye was like a dick move, because she was basically just saying he didn't have a lot of assists this game. Like, she wasn't being like, you made Jokic so he couldn't pass. Like, she wasn't saying that. I think Ramona Shelburne is guilty of some stuff, but she was not in the wrong here in the least.
She's never confused as being a casual. That's not part of her story.
No, that's what. Anyway, but just back to the stuff with problematic. So the New York Times review was absolutely scathing, and this is what it said. I thought this was sort of the key paragraph here. It was like, so who should be the most brassed off by this show? I'm not even sure what brassed off means, Andrew. Is it pissed? Is it, I guess? Not Picasso, who gets out totally unharmed, but the women artists in the museum's collection dragooned into this minor prank. Dragooned? This guy's going off. And the generations of women and feminist art historians, he lists a few off, who have devoted their careers to thinking seriously about modern art and gender, especially at the Brooklyn Museum, whose engagement with feminist art is unique in New York. I left sad and embarrassed that this show doesn't even try to do what it promises, put women artists on equal footing with the big guy. And then she responded by like pretending not to be mad online.
Sorry, not sorry. Right. Of course, the straight white man critic for the New York Times hates my show. LOL, right? And it bears mentioning what the show is. It is, I believe, a one Picasso painting lent to the museum by the estate. I could be wrong there.
There might be a few, but there are not many.
Right, there's a few, and surrounded by other contemporary artists who are amazing, right? Like Cecily Brown's having her moment, like kind of one of the goats. Ana Mendieta, who may or may not have been a victim of an awful, awful crime, who has made amazing work. Marilyn Minter, one of my favorites. Kiki Smith, the god. Mickalene Thomas, like, come on, right? Murderer's Row a little bit. But I don't understand maybe how it fits into Pablo Picasso necessarily, because these are all very different artists. And the complaint online was like, we're ready for this, but we don't know what she was trying to do, meaning Hannah Gadsby. So like, even as a show on a visceral level, it's not cohesive. It just looks like a museum collection. My wife was like, should we see it? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, does a bad review make me want to see it more or less? Like, as you know, I'm trying to tamper the schadenfreude in my life. So I don't want to see it and be like, haha, it's a train wreck. Like, I don't want that feeling in my life anymore. But I am curious as to this show, which is probably one of the more famous shows to happen in recent memory. Like, this is going to go down in history as like a specific like moment, right?
I don't know. I couldn't say. I don't know what the response will be to the show, or if there even will be one outside of this sort of initial, critical panning of it. Like, are people going to flock to Brooklyn Museum and see this and be like, wow, I came away with a totally different thought about Pablo Picasso? Because, as you described, it doesn't feel like there's that much Picasso in it, and let alone his great works. So if someone says, I went there and my takeaway was that this guy wasn't that great. Like, well, did you see Guernica? Well, no, that's not there. Well, so you didn't see his masterworks. You saw stuff by other people, and it was kind of like, this guy was a jerk. I'm not. Yeah. I'm not sure if it can really take Pablo down a couple pegs.
And from all reports, Pablo Picasso wasn't just a jerk. Like, he maybe was an awful, awful person. But then hanging his paintings complicates things depending on how you see the separation of church and state, and the artworks and the artist. Maybe it would have been better to do a documentary about his personal life if that was the issue, right? I don't know. I do know, like, the Brooklyn Museum is definitely trying to do a thing that I enjoy, which is like the populist route, like Klaus Biesenbach doing the Bjork show at the MoMA, Jeffrey Deitch, like embracing street art, things that we as a community seem to love, a lot of us, enough of us. And Anne Pasternak, who is in charge of the Brooklyn Museum kind of rebrand, is awesome. I've worked with her before at Creative Time, where she was the director there for years, and we did an MTV thing together. Like, she was interested in having conversations outside of like the stuffy N+1 art forum kind of embrace, what I call it. And I love what she was trying to do with the Brooklyn Museum. She did the Cause show. She champions like street art. She wants to put on shows that many people want to see, and it's hard. I believe she's like, or the museum is in year 6 or 7, 8 of this direction, and it's hard to see where it's going. And there's been conversation about how social media might be dictating shows like It's Problematic and it reacting to a social media reaction, whereas the institution, as big and as respected as a Brooklyn Museum, should exist maybe on its own footing and not a reaction to a reaction. I don't know. Like, I just don't know.
Right, because how do you differentiate between sparking a conversation within the art community, sparking a conversation about something that arises naturally from what you are displaying on art, and it occurring on social media? That stuff is all completely intertwined. And the only metric that you would really have as to whether people are talking about it would be in the press or on Twitter or on Instagram.
Or money generated through visitors, right? Like Klaus and Biesenbach, empowered by some hit shows at MoMA, right? And the artist is present. Like that show alone probably creates his whole legacy. And people didn't like the Bjork show, but he kind of hit some home runs that you can't deny. And that was measured by visitor numbers. There was a line down the block every day. And
right, like would Piss Jesus be considered a success or a failure? Like we're still talking about it.
Piss Christ,
excuse me, yeah.
Andre Serrano killed the National Endowment for the Arts, which has its ripple effect, and that's important shit, because this is why I believe you have lawsuits in the Supreme Court where artists are losing to legality. We have people in robes telling us what artists can or cannot do. Piss Christ was such a good artwork. I don't like it. Like, I'm not even religious, but Serrano's not my guy. But he did something super important, right? He pissed people off, like, pardon the pun. But he started a conversation that was a boulder too big to stop. And it's cool that you mentioned that, because I think it is in direct lineage of the way we talk about it's problematic. We have the language.
Some people say that it is the boner child of Piss Christ.
Robert De Niro's father was also a painter, famously. I wonder how long he had his boner. Does he have children? Did he have children in his 90s?
It's the only way to prove.
Right. Prove it. Okay, there you go.
You can still get active.
I will see this show and I will report back.
Yeah, we need the Quo boots on the ground. The Hocus and Solomon's.
Dude, I got a membership to the Brooklyn Botanical Museum, so I'm there constantly. I will cruise through this Gatsby show and let everyone know how I feel about it. I'll probably like it.
You're a grill master. You're at the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens now? You're you are touching grass. You're outside.
Oh, yeah. I used to be a member of like a sandwich shop. You know how they give you a card? And they're like, you're a member. Every 10 sandwiches, you get one free. And I'm like, ooh, I feel like I belong. Now I'm a part of a Brooklyn Botanical Museum. Hey, yo, it's expensive. And you go a couple times, you might as well just splurge $100 for the year.
When you were a member of this sandwich club,
go on.
Getting that 10th sandwich for the free one, did you feel proud or ashamed?
Nervous. I was nervous, like you are at the grill. I can't blow it, man. I better order the right one. I better not be like hungover. My sink had better be there for me to eat over it. I was nervous because it had been building this whole time. I don't want to waste it on a fava bean sandwich. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
wow.
Yeah.
You don't want that broke boy food.
I would just gaze up at the menu and be like, for my free sandwich, I do not want a white man struggle.
No, I feel that. There was a coffee shop and it had its little, loyalty card, and it would stamp it every day. And, if you're going to your coffee shop locally once a day, and I think it was like 10 or 12 free ones, you're getting a free coffee like once a week. Mm-hmm. It's a rapid turnover. It's not like a sandwich thing where, look, I don't know how fast you were eating these sandwiches. I just feel like a sandwich place, that might be over a month's time, like a wine store. Like, oh, like I'm shopping here for 2 months, 3 months, and here it is, my free bottle of wine. But you're right, you don't want to blow it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, oh, I've just been getting like a little regular black coffee every day, small coffee, and then it's like, oh, for my free one, turmeric latte with oat milk. I'm like, but you don't even drink that. You don't even like it. You're like, but it cost $1.50 more than what I normally order.
It's like when I get rewards from my credit card. Like, I'll go into the garden and be like, I'll have a beer. I will take that Latrell Sprewell throwback jersey. Shorts. Of course I need Nick shorts. And I'm like, I am happy with my $300 night. I'm like, Jesus. But then when I get rewards for like $150 from my credit card, I'm like, whoa, should I put this towards like an educational thing? Should I donate this to a worthy cause? It's weird how money works, man.
Well, I feel like we can move on to basketball here. We're
How
damn
money
near an
works.
hour into this perfect pod. We veered away from the tin fish. We got back to the Casina Pavera, spotted dick, and here we are. We are now 2 games into the NBA Finals. It's knotted up at 1. Heat culture. Took a ride to the Rocky Mountains and came home with a W in Game 2. Do we have a series here, Andrew? What do you think?
I was super grateful. Yo, I don't know why I'm saying yo so much. I'm sorry. It is I've just listened to Jump Around. House of Pain has been booming through my house. But I would say the thing I was talking about last week, living in the moment of the playoffs, is so apparent in this series because
I've noticed how present you are right now.
that's right. But after game 1, everyone's like, oh, this is going to be a Denver sweep. I'm like, I don't think so. Denver looked great, but like Jimmy Butler's right. Like there's going to be adjustments. And then after game 2 last night, everyone's like, oh, it's going 7. I'm like, can we just like chill for a second?
The answer is no to that question.
Right. Like now people are like, Joel Embiid did dominate Jokic this season. It's just like, we do have a series. I am grateful. It's awesome. I was scared after game 1, sort of like you at the grill. But it's going to be a good one, and it might be a 4-1. It might be I don't know.
I don't know. My point in the Heat has been the same, is that it's now just sort of mystical.
Oh,
look, we can. No. We can. No, what I'm saying is we can talk about all the actual components of what they're doing. Like that's the real way of talking about basketball. I just mean like I thought they weren't any good. Thought they were going to lose to the Bucks. Thought they would lose to the Knicks. Thought they would lose to the Celtics. Clearly, they're doing something right. They're playing ball. We're watching them play. Yeah,
I did not think they were
just
going to lose against the Celtics. I don't think we both thought that. Going in, we were just like, they beat the Knicks and they beat the Bucks. And
well,
we
I
think
meant
the Celtics are weird.
at that point, the way that they were playing, and I'm just going to basically regurgitate that same thing. It's like, look, they're playing well. They're beating teams who had a better record than them. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. Like, do I think they're just going to go into the finals and get mollywopped? Probably not, because they've shown that they can beat good teams. And Denver is a good team, but not like a dynasty here. They're good.
But
They're
they
a
don't
good
have to
team.
be a dynasty. They're still the better. The Denver Nuggets are good. The whole
Of
month.
course they are.
Yeah.
I'm saying they were the best in the West. They took a lot of time off. They're like a top 3 team in basketball.
For
they
sure.
were
Literally.
they're very good.
Yeah.
They're a very good team. I just mean the Heat coming back to win this series is not unfathomable. They aren't the Golden State Warriors. Would I bet on the Heat? No.
Yeah.
But like Denver's a very good team. They're not world beaters, despite the fact that their offense has absolutely been cooking people. And a lot of that's just that Jamal Murray has been so good.
Yeah, I agree. And Michael Porter Jr. was getting roasted last night. I've never been quite a fan. I hate his game, love his politics. But he's been kind of the same player the whole. He's got a beautiful shot. He's tall, 6'10", but he makes bad decisions, and he's kind of mentally lazy. He's not my guy at all. And he kind of got exposed last night a little bit. But there's many permutations in which this series can take form. Spo gets credit for being a basketball genius. He is and isn't. But the most observable thing I think he's done is, we've talked about this, he isolates the worst shooter on the opposite team, and he lets that defender sag, and that defender either doubles or stunts towards the ball handler, whatever. This series, it was R.J. Barrett versus the Knicks. It was Jaylen Brown versus the Celtics. And in this series, it is Aaron Gordon. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening.
Okay, sorry. And
Yeah, go on.
And Gordon's big, and he just went to the rack in game 1. The adjustment was he inserted Kevin Love and kind of like used size to his advantage in game 2. And whatever, Strus hit shots, right?
I mean, my thing is, yeah. I mean, if guys hit shots, these are competitive. The first game, it was competitive for a while, and then it wasn't. Thus far, I would say nothing has been shocking about this series.
Game 2 was a coin flip.
Yeah, and if I was a Nuggets fan, I'd be brassed off, if you will, about that goaltending call. But ultimately, that was a close game, as you said. That call goes the other way. Maybe Denver wins, maybe not. Whatever. I mean, there were plenty of those plays. I'm not saying Denver fans should point at that play. I'm just saying it was that close.
Yeah.
That the difference between that call may sway the game or not. Whatever. But that was a really fun game. I mean, I watched it with a group of people at a birthday party.
Wait,
everyone was.
Where was this
City
birthday
Island.
party?
In City Island.
What the fuck, man?
That's where one goes on Sunday nights for birthday parties.
Come to my birthday, an hour northeast.
Oh, I'll be there anyway.
Yeah.
I was already going to be on City Island at 10 o'clock on a Sunday.
Oh, I was just going to be in Pelham randomly, so I'll just hop over.
I like these little New York neighborhoods with coastal personalities. Like Coney Island does it a little bit. Rockaways does it for sure. Red Hook kind of. Mm-hmm. So, we're on a waterway. We're mariners.
Mm-hmm. Manchester by the Sea, like New Boston is what they call City Island.
I mean, I feel like every restaurant there is like the Crab Shanty, the Shark Shack, the Octopus Hut.
I will probably not go to the Octopus Hut.
There may not be an Octopus Hut. I think it's the Octopi Hut.
Yeah.
The Octopi guys.
Strange place to have. So were you watching Gabe Vincent shoot the lights out?
Yeah,
over
we
were
watching on a projector at a bar, and there was maybe 40, 50 people. It was pretty crowded.
That's awesome. I mean, when you're there, it's cool. Is the fish local there? And is it safe to eat fish from that water?
I couldn't tell you. This place was a bar, but other people went to a restaurant beforehand and gorged on fried shrimp and things like that.
It's tight.
I wonder about this also in excuse me, in Long Island. You'd be like, oh, it's a fish place on Long Island, and then you look and they have some stuff's local, they've got local porgies or stripers or whatever.
Yeah.
But the rest of the stuff is farmed. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious about this as well. I would guess that the irony is that these places are on the water and they are the octopus.
Octopi.
The octopi guys.
Yeah.
But they are, it's farmed salmon from Alaska or something like that.
Should we start a restaurant called Five Octopi Guys?
Are the guys from Servos? Are they bringing in stuff from the Hudson River? No.
Oh man, it's like New York Noodle Town in Chinatown always has soft shell crab back in season. It's back, soft shell crab. I'm like, yes, from the freezer. But I have no problems with frozen food. I mean, that was the dirty secret, right? Whole Foods and other fishmongers just defrost fish that they have frozen for sale next to the refrigerator. So if you want, you can buy the same fish just in a frozen brick, because all they do is defrost it back there.
But then there was the other piece of knowledge, fish knowledge, that you want the stuff that's quickly flash frozen.
Right, because it has less time to go south.
So it's they freeze it right away, and then you get it. That's better than stuff that actually just sits in a boat or in a refrigerator for a few days.
Oh, can you walk me through a shameful moment I had this week? Mm-hmm. I was at a restaurant. I called you. You were busy. Don't even get in your feelings about it. I was sitting having beer with a couple buddies. Mm-hmm. You were called, and I wanted something to eat. So I was like, maybe I'll have the salmon on chips. And
salmon on chips.
Yeah, it's at that place East Side in the Lower East Side. They have a pretty awesome menu. It's stuff on chips, basically.
Okay.
Schnitzel, cod, salmon, whatever.
And when you're saying chips, are you saying this in a British way, as in French fries?
dude.
Or, okay. Just making sure you're not talking about tortilla chips. Like you're talking about chos, salmon chos.
This is the idol, and I am the crotchety person ordering this food. Anyway, so knowing all this seedy salmon stuff, I know you can't eat. Well, farm salmon is like increasingly bad for us, and fresh salmon is increasingly great for us, but all of it's kind of like depending on where you get it. So I ask a stupid question to the very nice server. I'm like, hey, where's the salmon from? And the server's like, oh, I don't know, but I'll ask the kitchen. They'll know. And I'm like, no. That was a rude thing for me to ask. You don't need to do that. I'm embarrassed now. I was thinking out loud. And she was like, no, let me do it. I'm like, okay, that'd be nice. She'd be like, yeah, I want to know too. So that's good for me as a good server to know. She comes back and she's like, oh, it's from Nova Scotia no, it's from Scotland. I'm like, I don't know what that means. I'll just take it. But I just wanted to know if it was like fresh or supermarket salmon or, wild caught or farmed. And I ate it, and my friends were having a field day with me, man. They were like, look at this loser asking where the salmon's from. Like, where are we? Who are you? What's going on? Meanwhile,
What answer would have been unsatisfactory? But anyway, sorry, go on.
no answer. This is my point. I'm like, she could say anything. I'm going to order the salmon. But I'm curious, like, where's this bar getting the salmon from? Like, because I go out of my way to the food bazaar in Brooklyn to get, they have in the back on the low, they always get one king salmon a day, and they put it out next to the regular salmon, and there's only a few portions of it, and it is the most delicious thing I've ever had in my life. So I go there on purpose just for this.
How hungry are you right now that you will not stop talking about food?
Pretty hungry. my sink is ready. I know. We're talking about hoops. But okay, should I be embarrassed?
You are a food dog right now.
Yeah, I got that dog.
Should you be embarrassed? Yes. If there was no answer that was unsatisfactory, you're just wasting people's time. If they came back and they were like, yeah, it's from Pennsylvania. You're like, ooh.
I know. But
I don't want it then. I don't want it.
But
there was no one like Staten Island. Wow, local. There was no answer you wouldn't have accepted.
But this is what our conversation was last time. Like, ooh, can I try the pistachio ice cream? Ooh, can I try that IPA? It's like it's all the same. You're getting the same one, but it's part of. Why is it acceptable to order coffee like that, but not ask where your octopi comes from?
I mean, I think I don't know. I've never asked where the coffee's from either, so I don't know.
Anyway, okay. Back to hoops.
All right, you maniac. You're so hungry.
Yo, the playoffs and the finals doesn't really offer much basketball juice.
Yeah, I thought, right, we can get into the nitty gritty and like, should Denver have called a timeout? Yeah, sure, whatever, man.
I don't know.
I guess.
Yeah. I got no basketball takes here, man. Like, is Caleb Martin like really a max player? No. He goes 1 for 3, you know? Siles makes fight, and Gabe Vincent got hot. He shot 8 for 12. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, they made some shots. I thought, we talked earlier a little bit about Spo, and I think Spo was trying to avoid talking about strategy, and that's just some like weirdo coach stuff, because obviously Denver's going to go and try to look at what they did and try to make their own adjustments in this chess game of the finals. So Spo being like, you can't turn him into a passer. Like, that's what you guys tried to do for sure.
Yeah.
Right? I just mean, that was kind of what you did. They just sort of decided that Jokic scoring like 80% on twos in the paint was something that they would live with.
Yeah.
Like, clearly they made that determination. Not that they took him away as a passer, but they didn't help nearly as much. And, I mean, we were joking watching the game. Every time he touched the ball in the paint, we're like, two.
Yeah.
2. And Miami was able to build its lead in the fourth quarter, from like 3 to 7, I think almost to 9 at one point, basically while getting no stops.
Yeah.
They got some threes, they got some offensive rebounds, they had a 3-point play or two, but they got no stops. They were just sort of satisfied with being like, yeah, you can shoot 80% on twos, and we'll just kind of make the math work with some threes and foul shots.
Yeah, man. The whole Jamal Murray is I feel like people view him as like a mythical kind of player now. It's like, is he gonna summon these magical bubble powers? It's like, well, not tonight, but he has done it before. I'm like, he's a streaky shooting guard, man. You know, obviously Jokic is running point, but like, if Denver hits their shots, they should be fine. They've done it before. I don't think we have to get carried away and be like, is this the best duo, Jokic and Murray, in finals history? I'm like, who cares? No. The answer is no, at all. But like, we're doing all this stuff to kind of generate content for it, and I'm down. I mean, I read all of it, but I'm struggling to describe what I just saw.
Well, here's a question for you. This is based on a tweet that you put up on June 1st, a couple days ago. This was after game one, I believe.
A couple days.
That would make sense.
I was just thinking about, why they won.
You said they use Jokic as proof of why advanced analytics don't work.
Yes.
And I was like, is that like a subtweet at your beloved co-host? And I was like, maybe a little bit.
Did you?
Well, no. When you said that, I was like, is he talking about us? We're like our debates about advanced analytics. What's Andrew going at here? Who is he subbing?
Oh, all of Twitter, but we're pro analytics. Obviously, we were talking about like BPM. Like, it was regular.
But I wasn't here hurt. I was just like, is he trying to go? Is Quo trying to? Does he wants that smoke?
Oh,
is he outside?
Let's go.
Is he touching grass?
Is he in Pelham right now?
I was curious what you meant though, because I actually wasn't sure.
Yeah, it was during the MVP debate, and people in support of Joel Embiid were saying, well, Jokic has not been close to winning a championship and is kind of like not as good a defender as Joel Embiid. And everybody who seems to love Jokic for MVP just keeps on putting up these numbers as support. But the Nuggets aren't winning anything. The Nuggets themselves are kind of a beige team, the beige flag. So all these advanced analytics numbers are kind of noisier and therefore should have caveats attached to them. And my whole argument is like, well, they all tell a little bit of a whole story. Not all of them are going to do the job. But when Jokic is leading the league in like 7 or 8 advanced categories, like, there is something to that. Even though there might be a Caruso that creeps in, that's weird. And Jokic should not lead the NBA in defensive box plus minus. That is because they value rebounds a little too much. But he's not a trash defender like everyone says. So I thought that was a rekindling of this old Moneyball thing, being like, haha, the nerds did not win. I won. I'm a baller. And now that we get to see the truth of it.
What's weird about this is that, like, people's hostility towards, quote, advanced analytics is really, I think, more towards, like, the gimmicky ones, right? Like the compound catch-all stats that are sort of...
Per is terrible.
But it's like per, like, win shares per 48, Raptor, LeBron, Carmelo, all those stats. And I don't think those are taken seriously for the most part within the NBA analytics community, other than that, like, that's like a fun approach. How do you come up with a way to rank all players?
I love it.
In a holistic way. But unless people who have invented those have gone on to work for teams, for sure. You know, whether it's the guy who did PTPM or there's other ones. But again, these guys become analytics personnel a lot of times. But those stats themselves, I remember hearing Ben Falk discuss these, and he's like, I'm not into these stats. He's just like,
No.
He's like, I just don't really care about these compound metrics. So, like, the interesting part about this debate is that, like, I don't think people are really anti-analytics, right, at this point. I think those aren't analytics. I think those things are, as I said, they're kind of just like novelties. So I was just more interested, not in your specific take, but I'm like, what is the state of the analytics versus the eye test in 2023? And I don't think it's as simplistic as it used to be, where you would have people say, analytics is all threes and mid-range jumpers. And that's what people believe. I'm like, I think we've advanced past that, and this idea of analytics being like this, that analytics is not those stats, I guess, in my opinion. I think analytics is more like, here's play type stats. Here is like,
Tracking
points
stuff.
per touch. Here's tracking. Here, that it's stuff that isn't a black box. It's like, no, here's what happens when he goes to his right hand and they send help and they kick to that corner. These are the amount of open looks we're getting. I feel like analytics has gotten to a place that's kind of indisputable. I guess that's what I'm saying.
I totally agree. And this conversation was not even about this stuff. This conversation was about assists per game. And it got so convoluted that it ends up on ESPN where Jalen Rose is like, I don't think points per game tells the story. I think it's total points. And I'm like, we've devolved all the way back to the beginning, which is like amazing, right? I love it. It reaches the broadcast that we're all watching. So a casual that Spo would accuse of not following the game would be like, oh, so we're not doing points per game anymore? Because there were people doing a great job in campaigning for Joel Embiid, saying Jokic's strength as a passer and points per game as a stat doesn't tell a complete story. And we have to talk about how he gets these assists, what kind of teams and competition he's playing against, and all these things. And I'm like, well, this is what advanced analytics is for. It kind of tracks the gross details of it. But when people are, and I say people on Twitter, supporting Joel Embiid, did a great job. I love it. The BMM does this. It ends up being a Tatum discussion. Like, is Tatum higher on the MVP ranking because he ended with the most points this season? Weird. Weird stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with like the Jokic conversation that kind of bothers me a little bit is mostly just that he is viewed with this sense of otherness.
Is he?
That
people hate him.
No, I don't mean. I mean that people are like, how does he do this? Oh my God, how does he do this? Like, this is so incredible. We've never seen anything like this. I'm like, well, he plays like LeBron or Harden or Doncic. He's just fucking huge.
Yeah. I mean, people.
That's my only thing. People talk about his stats and like, oh, what is he doing? I'm like, we know what he's doing. He's putting up 23 a game with 10 assists and like 14 boards. Like, I don't know. I just feel like he is an awesome player who is often over mystified in a way that I think,
right.
Like, maybe it's because he's Serbian, maybe it's because he's kind of fat or like looks fat by NBA standards. Maybe
Denver.
It's just because he doesn't speak English. Yeah, there's something.
It's market, because people talk about Murray in the same way, in a magical way, and then they talk about the team. How did Denver get here? They were supposed to be the upset in the first round, and I'm like, it's just because no one really cares about the Nuggets. No one thinks about the Nuggets. They're annoying, right? So if you're following the playoffs, you're like, ooh, I want Boston, Lakers, the Knicks are good all of a sudden. The Heat are kind of fun coming after the Heatles. Philly, we're talking about Joel Embiid. It's like, we don't want Jokic to get in the way. He's no fun. That's just Denver. We have no stake. We have no emotional feelings towards this wonderful city. And that's why I think at large, when people talk about Jokic, they're just like, well, what the hell is this thing? How did this win 2 MVPs? And obviously people who care or want to watch the game, was this Eric Spoelstra, are just like, he's something we've seen before.
Yeah, I mean, my thing with him is like, I feel like maybe it's just the people that I talk to, but everyone thinks he's absolutely insanely good. I don't hear people being like, yeah, Jokic stinks. I don't see that ever. Like, just generally speaking, I think he is viewed as an absolute offensive, like, mega goblin. He is just an outrage on offense. My only thing about him is just that, like, I don't think he is outside the parameters of what we've seen in terms of scorer facilitators. He just does it in a different position. Like, how did LeBron succeed? By being bigger and stronger and faster and able to get to the rack, which drew in extra defenders and allows him to make brilliant passes. That's what Jokic does. Mm-hmm. He does the same thing. Mm-hmm. He just does it with strength and size to get close to the paint where you have to send a defender, and then he kicks the ball up. or he finds a cutter. Like, he does the same stuff that Harden and LeBron do, I think, and Luka. He just does it in a different way because of his like enormous size. I don't know. I think he is a fucking amazing player. It just sometimes kind of bugs me when people act as if he is like not part of like this rich tradition of like scorer facilitators that have come out over the last couple of years.
And this is kind of, I don't know why Jokic gets this kind of criticism. I do get it, but like, I think he's a god level player. Not many players win 2 MVPs. He is in the Giannis tier to me already. I think he's gonna make the Hall of Fame if he stops playing now. I think we can talk about him in the top 15 tier of all time.
I don't even have a problem with that. You know,
Yeah.
in our book, The Joy of Basketball,
Yeah.
he is described as being the best offensive center of all time, and we wrote that from my
Years
recollection before he even won an MVP.
Yeah.
Maybe he'd won 1, but definitely not 2.
Yeah, and I get it. You know, we have our friends being like, Jokic is going to lose this round. Oh, okay, he's going to lose this round. He's going to lose this round. And similar thing happened to Miami, where I think the people I talk to, and even a part of me, is just like, wait, what? How? Like, they're not this. They weren't this during the regular season. I think this is some sort of magical thing we cannot describe. But it is a really tactile thing we can describe. And it's annoying, right? It's annoying. It takes time, and it takes a little bit of like homework to figure out, like, for me, like, what makes Miami work every series, every game, every possession. Because it's not as easy as saying like, Joel Embiid's the MVP, he's great, just feed the dog, you know. James Harden is amazing, just let him succeed and fail at his own rate. It's more complicated with teams that I have not invested time into, because now I have to do the work. Can't I just call them magical?
Yeah, no, I'm just always trying to decipher whether it's a race thing or a nationality thing or a height thing. Like, what is it that people remove him from this category of scorer facilitator that LeBron kind of took to this next level? He took to the Pippen or Mason role.
But they don't want to compare Jokic to LeBron. Like, they're trying everything not to do that.
But that's what I mean. Like, in my opinion, I look at him like, this guy just does LeBron stuff on offense. That's what he's doing.
Yeah.
It's 100% what Luka does, what Harden does, what Trae Young does. He just does it in a different way.
Can we drop a
we're
Boris
familiar
Diaw
with
in
this.
there?
Yeah, no, but this is what I mean. Like, I'm like, no, he's part of a rich tradition. Stop othering him.
Yes.
Stop pretending he is like an alien. Like, how does he do it? What do you mean?
Well,
you know how he does it. We watch it. He's strong as a fucking ox. He has insane touch. He's a genius. Of course, we know what he's doing.
I mean, this is like what I think about the Idol, or it's problematic. It's like, there's a rich tradition of this, right? Like, I saw Mulholland Drive. I saw Blue Velvet. And I saw Boris Diaw on the Spurs and the Suns. And as we talked about in our well-mentioned book, This Perfect Pod, like, we love these players, right? These are the interesting guys in the league. Like, without saying the B word, Ben Simmons, like, these are the players that do the things we like. And they're not rare per se, historically, but they don't really exist in plenty in the current present NBA.
I mean, I don't think there's anyone who's had Jokic's passing ability at 7 feet tall, just offhand. I mean, yes, Simmons close to that, to be honest. You know, he's a great passer.
I think
he just is, and he's 6'11". He just is not the kind of
shooter,
singular offensive scorer
Yeah.
that Jokic is, that opens up the floor in that same way.
But he is a defender, right? And like, they all come in different packages, but they're all kind of versions of the things we can talk about.
I mean, right, if we're going to talk about just historically, right? I mean, I think Sabonis was a really good passer. Just thinking tall guys, like not the young one, the old one.
I mean, both.
Marcus Gasol and Pau Gasol, both good passers. Not on this level, but very good.
For sure.
And Magic.
Right.
That'd be another guy. Kyle Anderson's a good passer. But we don't need to talk
Brad
about
Miller.
tall passers. Brad was a good passer.
He was, yeah.
Good,
Triple
great
double.
passer. Incredible knockdown mid-range shooter.
Yeah.
Joe Kim. But I think the tall passer, Draymond. But he's actually not even tall. The tall passer as a quote cheat code is absolutely true, and Jokic shows like when you're really tall and really good at scoring, how much of a weapon that passing can be. And I do hope that guys like Wemby, as they're growing up, can realize like you don't even have to be on this level. If you're just a pretty good passer, the angles that you can take at 7'5" with that wingspan, you can put the ball anywhere you want.
Mm-hmm. And
such a huge thing, and I think that will be something that, like maybe maybe Jokic will be a big man passer in the way that Curry is a shooter that you can't replicate, but we can learn like from him.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where Spo ran into problems in game 1, where he was slothing defenders off of poor shooters, but Jokic would just find the people in the right space. Like there are certain schemes that are the players are hard to scheme against, and Jokic in his prime is so interesting to see him playing with a player like Michael Porter Jr., who, when confronted with an obstacle, like doesn't really have, and this is our whole Celtics discussion, doesn't have the bag that like a player like Boris Diaw has, or Jokic, or the players we really celebrate. And I think Jokic is on a poorly constructed team, but he's that good where these straight line players can operate within their straight lines because he can maneuver through them.
Well, I think Denver was really frustrating to watch earlier in the season when Murray wasn't shooting that well. Porter was shooting more. Gordon was kind of trying to do more different things.
Right.
And I do think a lot of their playoff success is that they've had a much stricter offensive tyranny, where it's like Jokic gets the ball, he will figure things out. Murray gets the ball, he tries to score.
Yeah.
Everyone else get in line. Porter, you can take some shots here and then.
Yeah.
Other guys, you space the court and take open threes and run the floor. Gordon, you take open threes when they leave you, and you try to cut for dunks.
Yeah.
And that's all we're doing. And they've become a far more enjoyable offensive organism to watch, I think, in the postseason than they were early in the year, because I honestly found them kind of agitating.
I know. We've talked about this all season. I don't even blame you. Yeah, for those reasons you just described. And I think about when people speak of playoff experience and how valuable it is to go through it. And I've always tried to parse what that meant. Was it a conversation about grilling a steak, that dog? Was that real? But through watching this Nuggets team, I've decided it is real, but in the way that players like Aaron Gordon are like, you know what? This is very stressful, and our objective is to win this quarter. I will not do the things I cannot do. The Patrick Ewing thing, like whenever you ever shot that shot before, And the playoff experience, I think, is knowing your limitations and knowing your strengths, and how this Nuggets team stopped kind of messing around. And all these players are just like, no, that's Jokic's thing, or that's Murray's thing. I'm Aaron Gordon. I just try to lock down my guy and take a smaller man off the dribble. That's all I do.
Well, I think you can look at Miami and say pretty similarly, they have that same kind of tyranny. It's like, all right, Butler's allowed to create. Bam, a little bit. Everyone else, you take threes, space the court, attack closeouts, kick to the open man, take the three, attack the closeout. That's what you do. And Jimmy is our creative guy.
Yeah.
Lowry, he's allowed to do some creative stuff too.
Yeah.
But there are rules about who is allowed to do what. And I think when we looked at teams like Philly and the Knicks, our guys, where they ran into trouble, a lot of times is that you have kind of a messy hierarchy.
Yes.
You're like,
right.
Wait. This guy isn't that good at this task, so why is he doing it?
Let me cook. RJ. Let me cook. Right.
It's like, okay, well, Tobias Harris, and then I just put a tweet up about him, and there was people were asking about what
loved it.
players could benefit from a change of scenery and become like specialized, you know, like role players like Aaron Gordon, where they would thrive in a new environment. I said, Tobias Harris. And I'm honestly not being totally facetious here.
No.
Because Tobias Harris is like, he's a unitasker scorer. You know, if you look at, could he do sort of what Jaylen Brown does? You know, can he put up 23 a game on league average efficiency? Probably. But the Sixers don't need that. That's the last thing they need, is another volume scorer who isn't as good at doing that task as James fucking Harden and Joel Embiid.
Right.
So, like, Tobias could actually be a role player. People just don't think of scorer as a role. They think of non-scorers, defenders, 3-and-D guys. When people talk about role players, that's all they ever mean.
Jaylen Brown's a role player.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
He's a role player. His role is just scoring.
Scoring, right. I mean, he could benefit from that. I love that idea, and I had trouble like kind of thinking about it. Jaren Jackson Jr. kind of did that. He came out of his long injury, or the injury this season, and was just like, I'm just going to hoist up threes and protect the rim. That's all I'm going to do. He doesn't like try to back down his defender. He doesn't control the ball. He's like, we got John Morant, we got Desmond Bane. I am a highly touted prospect coming out of college, and I was talked about as the Hall of Famer, but I'm just going to block shots. And I love that about him.
But then the irony with him was that when Ja got hurt, he was like, actually, I'm not just a kind of role player like that.
Well,
actually, I can score. I'm a star.
Well, if Jokic gets hurt, watch out for the Michael Porter show, right? Like, you have lesser options. At that point, it's the Spo thing. The Marines got to drop down and do some stuff, because you're going to get bounced if you don't.
Yeah, I just mean like Triple J averaged 22 a game in the second half of the year.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah. But
He
when
averaged, I think, something like 18 for the season. You know, in some of those, you know, March and April, I think combined, he averaged like 25 a game or something.
he had some weird ups and downs of the season. I think his goal of becoming like a defensive player of the year is kind of awesome. But he has John Morant on his team, who we'll talk about later. But like, he's a clear alpha. He has the ball in his hands, you know. But other players, I was thinking like Jaylen Brown. Like Jaylen Brown, we talked about this last week, but he's at an inflection point in his career. I absolutely see him turning into an Andrew Wiggins type player on a great team. Somehow he stopped defending this season. I don't know. Jaylen Brown used to be a really good defender, so I think he has that skill set. But I'm basically looking at salaries and seeing like who's ranked number 40 through 70. I'm like, any of these guys can fall into this Aaron Gordon thing the tweet is talking about.
Yeah, they mentioned Aaron Gordon, and who was the other one? There was another guy that they had put
Not
in that.
Wiggins.
It was Wiggins. It was Wiggins.
Yeah.
And the implication there is that young guys who are drafted really high and given a role as a primary scorer and the chance to be the team's superstar or one of the team's stars, and given an onus to, you know, create the offense, sometimes aren't up to that, but can successfully have a different job. I'm like, this is true, of course. You know, do what you're good at, no doubt. There are certain guys who come into the league like Wiggins, and they say, all right, you're going to put up X amount of shots. You're going to win Rookie of the Year. You're going to be viewed as like a potential scoring champion. And then it becomes clear that they just aren't that good at that. So maybe like an RJ Barrett, for example, to give you some optimism.
Right,
You could say maybe he could be that guy, maybe. But it would require him also doing what Andrew Wiggins did, becoming a much better defender and becoming a much better three-point shooter.
Right.
So this idea that it's all about environment isn't always true. It's also about them becoming like a different player.
And we're almost talking about bigger guys. Like, this excludes point guards and centers, because point guards, you're not going to be a rebounder. You're not going to be a lockdown only defender as like a small guy. We're almost talking about the specific prototype of like
I mean, you're just talking about 3-and-D guys.
Yeah. This is a
Like,
3-and-D conversation, and I like
So
what
get this.
Yeah.
They'll just take threes and they'll play some defense.
So
Any other kind of role players? No.
can Kevin Herter thrive on the Kings? I'm like, yes, he can. But your point about scoring is great because that is just a role. If this conversation is about a role, then we're talking about Lauri Markkanen, right? It's like he's a great shooter and scorer. His role is to put the ball in the basket. Not much of a defender. He's not much of a creator. But I think when he came out and on the Bulls, like, are we looking at a great player? Are we looking at, like, every player wants to be great? We've talked about this in the KBB conversation before. We're seeing so many prospects who are able to do many things because that's a survival instinct. So you cannot just be singular and get drafted above your actual value doing that singular skill. You need to add some wrinkle in there for someone to say, hey, you have potential to even be more than what we think. And then when you get to the NBA and you play 4 seasons, Markkanen's like, hey, I'm just like a really great scorer here. I can rebound a bit, but like I am not going to be Pau Gasol or Kristaps Porzingis, right? Who I think could be one of these players who turns into a role player.
Well, what I like here is like expanding, exploding brain meme, like final one. Everyone's a role player. Like, whoa.
Whoa.
So Jokic, the ultimate role player, the
Michael
center,
Jordan, the
facilitator,
Yeah.
scorer. That's a role?
Yeah.
Fucking role, man.
Absolutely. But you know, you've all worked with people who are like, yo, we're down someone on the fry line, the cook line, and the manager's like,
You're over the octopi guys.
Yo, we're used to having 5 octopi guys, but we're down 1, so we only have 4. Meanwhile, the guy sweeping out the steps outside is like, step aside, I too am an octopi guy.
I will work the calamari fry basket, bitches.
Was the bitches necessary? Can it just exist without that word?
I mean, like, it's not even gender. They're the octopi guys. Like,
Wait, what deep sea creature switches genders? That's a clam, right? Oh, oysters. Oysters do.
yeah, that's like so oyster.
Oh, oysters, man, it's so cringe. They do this every season.
The theys of the ocean floor.
Yo, can we talk about Ja Morant?
I was about to say the same thing to you. That's why we're a more perfect pod than a fava bean husk.
Bunch of octopi guys frying up some octopi. Bitches. Terrible.
But that wasn't me. That was the
You were
ornery
speaking
teen.
Right, you were speaking as a post-pubescent teenage octopi guy.
Yeah, which honestly I feel like I can do with some genuine acuity, and they typically would say biatch.
Oh, Jesus.
Something about a fry basket. You don't hear biatch as much as you used to.
For good reason. It was a pretty fantastic call out. What do you call it? Ad lib for rap music?
I mean, it was very Too Short, Snoop, that era. Would you spell it B-I-O or B-I-A?
B-I-O.
Like biatch?
Yeah. Sort of like one's biatch and the other one's biatch. It was a weird, but it was
Hold on.
Okay.
Mix them up and let me guess which one you're saying.
Okay. Order of fried octopi, biatch.
I think that was with an O.
Oh, you're right. Indeed, it was. You, sir, are not a spelling biatch.
It got very frat coded after a while.
Well, it's yeah.
It was like giving Listen to Dre Day on MTV 2.
I would argue
Jams?
to our ongoing cultural discussion, I think everything got frat coded, but it was also emasculating in a way that was boring to me. It was like calling your rival like drug dealer like a bitch is like not funny or interesting anymore. It wasn't worth the, what do they say? It wasn't worth the shake or the salt. I don't know.
Ooh, who doesn't know how to work the grill now?
Yo, I'm saying sometimes you're thrust into the role and sometimes you know your limitations. Now I have grill playoff experience. I know I am not the one to do that.
So you're saying that despite everyone thinking that the fifth octopi guy who yells out biatch is a star, he also is just a role player.
All 5 octopi guys are role players, but to that mind-bending point, sometimes he can sweep with like 8 brooms. He's got 8 brooms sweeping at the same time. But with one of those tentacles, he's frying some food.
He's frying his own tentacles.
Yes.
With some fava beans and some Chianti. Okay, John Morant. Let's get into that. John Morant, well, it came up again. He didn't do anything new that we've heard about, but the commish comes out and says, we're going to deal with John Morant later, but we have additional information. There's additional evidence.
Yeah.
There's more dirt. We have further tea about John Morant and his guns.
We've done an investigation and we found some. He didn't elaborate. He was like, I don't want to distract from what the beautiful basketball being played now. We'll announce our punishment or reaction after the finals are over. Stephen A. Smith does Stephen A. Smith stuff and was like, I heard the details. People inside NBA circles fear he's not going to be alive in 5 years. And I'm like, what? Does he have a terminal disease? Like, does he have like lymphoma? Like, what's going on? Because what the hell can you have to warrant that kind of response?
Well, it reminds me of, when 50 Cent first came out and was making all these enemies and talking all this shit, calling people biatches left and right.
Yes, he was.
And everyone thought, well, this guy's going to die within 6 months. Let's have a 50 Cent death pool. There's no way he's going to survive this summer.
Yep.
It's like, now he owns part of
vitamin water. Yeah, some shit. Well, there was Takeshi 6ix9ine, right? He was talking so much and snitching so loud that there was also a death pool kind of around him. He got worked over in a a crunch bathroom.
Oh, no. Yeah, you're right. It was a bathroom of wasn't even an Equinox.
It's something.
Maybe it was a crunch. Might have been a crunch in LA, I believe.
Yeah, he was working out, trying to self-improve, and some people were like, "The streets have something to tell you." 6ix9ine.
Yeah, it was unclear if those guys had any real motivation other than just being like, we don't like snitches around here.
Yeah.
No snitches at Bob's boot camp.
As I videotape this and put this online with everyone's face intact and not blurred out, it's AI, but it is something interesting to me, and I hate talking about these terms, but victim blaming John Morant for a crime that has not been committed yet against him is pretty, it's Isaac Asimov, right? This is Minority Report. This is precog stuff. But, a lot of predictive policing has been, our vice president would say that is a correct way to enforce the law.
Yeah, the mob rule. The John Morant stuff. I don't know what it is. There's other videos.
there's a bigger gun.
It's a longer video.
Yeah, he looks happier in this one. It's better video quality.
He brandishes a second firearm.
Yeah.
To a different and longer NBA YoungBoy song.
And I don't want to sound flippant. If I saw if you did that, I'd be like, yo, dude.
You are so much cooler than I thought.
Yeah, I'd be like, damn, let's hang out more. Another pod just about guns. The perfect.
You see that video of Quo listening to NBA Youngboy and brandishing guns? I'm like, I thought he was a washed king. Turns out, Quo's been having fun without me.
Listen, rolling up to the weed shop with legs longer but arms still the same length didn't quite work out for me, so I better be flashing some heat.
Yeah, I don't know what this evidence is, right? Maybe it's like... But the weird thing is, it all seems to be very independent of legal stuff because he hasn't been arrested. As far as I know, him having guns in a car in his hometown might be 100% legal. Those might be guns that he is able to have. I don't think we had any of those details, so the rest is just optics. What it sounds like to me, and this is not based on any knowledge I have. Nothing I say is ever based on my knowledge, but this one especially. I bet it's a gun on the team plane. That feels like where they're headed with this, because that would be
And crossing
like
state lines.
Yeah, that would be a real suspension. It might be a felony. You know, not that he got caught, but if they have evidence, it might not be something that he will face legal ramifications for. But that would be my hunch, is that gun on the team plane.
I agree. I think it is probably something of that nature, or maybe like gun in the arena, something like bad idea, terrible idea.
Gun in the locker room, gun on the plane. Those would be my real concerns about a heavy suspension fine coming down. Would be it's not violating the law.
Yeah.
Specifically, it's violating NBA stuff.
Yeah, and I can imagine how the story gets even worse. It's like, well, he has a drinking thing, as we all know, that he posts, and like he was drunk and he didn't know he had this gun. Like terrible, terrible stuff, you know. But it does remind me of the dress code things. Like Allen Iverson had to go through this. The idea of like, we have to save you guys from yourself. And I'm just like, I can understand on a human level why people are concerned, Silver's concerned about John Morant. Lovable guy, beyond business, beyond everything. Like, oh yeah, to your point, if it is having a gun on a team play and while he's like done partying and still maybe like drunk and drinking on the plane, they're adults, they can do this. And that is one thing. But a lot of the conversation, like when Stephen A is like, he might not be alive in 5 years, I know what he means in the good part of his heart. But it kind of reminds me of the way we used to talk about Allen Iverson and these like thugs in the NBA, which we wrote about in The Joy of Basketball, about how misguided that thought was and how dated it feels now.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. The Ja stuff is tough because I don't think we need to hold him to different standards than like what the law is necessarily. I also think that the NBA is a business. The NBA is a family-friendly business.
For sure.
And they are selling this product to parents and children. They aren't necessarily selling it to us. You know, they're deeply entrenched in like the next generation.
Absolutely.
Becoming fans of the sport, and then their kids, like, it needs to be something that's passed down. That is the beauty of sports in many ways, is learning about it, you know, from a parent and passing it along to a kid. And I've seen that in my own family. So like the optics are not nothing in the NBA. And John Morant really flouted the message that they tried to send, that he himself tried to convey. Right. So like this information is stuff they probably already had. That would be my hunch. They already knew this stuff. They knew about this stuff, and they're like, we will make this go away if you chill the fuck out.
Right.
I mean, that's what you would do.
Right.
We uncovered this. Look, we know he had the gun in the arena. We know he had the gun there. We're going to try to save this guy's career, though. We're going to try to save his reputation. We're going to let him be apologetic, and then he does it again. You're like, hey, we found some further evidence. Right. We warned you, man. What are we going to do, hide it again? We're just going to keep shielding you? Like, we gave you a chance. You said the right things, then you went out and you fucking did it again.
Oh my god.
Okay, now you gotta pay the piper, man. We hid this evidence. And this is what happens with drug suspensions, too. This isn't even conspiratorial ideas here. We go back and you look at guys like Tyreek Evans and O.J. Mayo. We just thought they were injury prone. Oh, he's been out for 50 games. His knee must be sore. Oh, look at him. Missed 70 games between these 2 seasons combined. That guy can never get healthy. And you look back and you're like, oh, right. They were just serving cocaine and other drug like suspensions beneath the radar.
Yeah.
And they aren't idiots. They also aren't the law. They can do whatever they want. They can say, we know you had a gun in the stadium, on the plane. We are just going to hold on to that.
Yeah.
Be cool.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned drugs because it does remind me on the outrage level of back in the day, someone like Damon Sotomayor being like, oh my God, he's smoking weed. The Jailblazers, these are corrupt dudes. Are they like even serious about basketball? I'm worried about that they'll end up actually in real jail. And now, like, we don't talk about marijuana in those ways. And I'm not saying guns is anywhere similar to marijuana, but it is this public perception of, again, like these guys need to be saved from themselves. And I said this on Twitter, and I'm not even quite sure about this, but like, Ja just seems a bit corny to me, and hopefully he'll grow out of this as age does, as time does to every kid. It's well publicized that like he's got a good family life. He is around good people, so this is all surprising stuff.
I mean,
but
also maybe I don't know.
Right. I mean, T Morant seems awesome to me, but I don't know. They seem close. I don't know.
I'm not passing judgment on anybody. I think you can be into dumb stuff and be like a good person and be like, he hasn't shown that he's a bad human yet. He's done dumb things.
I mean, beating up that kid in his own court is weird because I'm like, well, what did the kid say to him? You know, like, I wasn't there. It sounds bad, like putting hands on another player in a pickup game, but like shit gets.
But this
heated.
was also a couple years ago, right?
Yes.
But
that was the first time.
I just mean he was maybe only like 2 years older than the kid. That's all.
Exactly.
Exactly. I'm not making excuses. I just mean Ja has done dumb stuff, not evil stuff, not bad person stuff. He's done like, dude, you are getting too invested in being a menace.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, totally.
Stop showing up to the mall with like 8 of your buddies to defend your mom's argument in a foot action.
Yes,
like, you're just doing dumb stuff. So if that's what Stephen A. Smith is talking about, like this guy's going to get shot doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've talked about that. There is a chance of when you are in a place like Memphis and you have a gun on you and you're with a bunch of your buddies and you're going out a lot. We know a number of Memphis rappers have gotten shot.
Yep.
We know some of them have shot people. Like, you are just in situations where firearms are available and firearms are being brandished. So, like, there are a higher opportunity for you to die at the hands of a firearm than there are if you aren't around those things. So, like, that is valid. I also don't think his life is in jeopardy, but, you know.
I mean, Chris came in posing with like assault rifles with the text saying, on my way to the convention. It's like, it's a complicated thing. And I don't think he was an active player at the time, but this is always, every conversation is about race and it's about context and in this case, danger. I don't necessarily, I'm not convinced that John Morant is in trouble, you know? But I could totally be wrong. I hope I'm not wrong because that means something bad will have happened. But, like, he plays for an NBA organization. He's a basketball player. Like, I don't know. First and foremost, to me, he's a basketball player.
Yeah, I look, we don't need to rehash all the Ja stuff. That him jumping on IG Live for a second time with a gun.
It's funny.
I'm like,
it's funny.
Okay, there's something up with him. It's funny, but there is something going on with Ja because that is just too self-destructive and stupid and weird for there not to be something going on. Where, like, the heart wants what it wants.
Well, like, a lot of this is like media generated because we don't have information. Stephen A. Smith coming out and saying this stuff. As he was saying that, I was thinking like, what an exhausting. Stephen A. is brilliant, but what an exhausting life it is to have to hear the Ja Morant non-news and be like, I got to pull out a heater for this one. It's like he's going to be dead in 5 years. Like, whoa.
I know. But all right, so before we go, speaking of media-generated stories.
This is what I mean.
This just came across my transom, the Cookies Hoops desk. Kyrie Irving, this has been being reported by Shams, Chris Haynes, whoever. Kyrie Irving desires for Mavericks to explore acquiring Lakers star LeBron James to form a big three with Luka. He's reached out to LeBron about it.
That's not going to happen, right? LeBron is so happy in LA. That is that's just Kyrie thinking out loud. Although he manifested it in Brooklyn.
Look, would I like to watch LeBron, Kyrie, and Doncic? Sure, whatever. That'd be cool. Yeah, why not? But I don't see how that happens.
No. I don't either. And I don't even like that combination of superstar that much. Like, those three are so ball dominant. Like, that's not... I think it's more interesting having LeBron and AD together. Mm-hmm. And your boy, Reeves.
I like Luka, and he's a great player. I don't feel like LeBron is the right guy to put him with. Like, of course I'd be intrigued.
Yeah, of course
and I'd watch it.
Awesome. Yeah.
Like, they're some of the greatest players of this generation. But yeah, Luka playing with LeBron, just they do the same thing. I want to see Luka kind of create his version of what LeBron did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree.
Versus kind of like a version of LeBron with Luka.
I mean, to our previous conversation, I kind of want the Lakers to somehow get their grubby mitts on Trae Young and just make Trae Young like this weird bomber. Just like this volume. He's not a great three-point shooter, but like just kind of like narrow down his game and kind of like buzz around LeBron and AD. Him being with Luka, I want Luka to turn into LeBron. Like, that's not what I want as a fan, like them together.
I also wonder if this is something that is guaranteed not to happen.
Right. And he's just saying it, right.
That he is putting it out there so that he can then leave Dallas and go somewhere else and say, hey, I tried.
Yeah.
I tried.
Yeah.
Look, I wanted to bring LeBron here. I wanted us to stick together, but they couldn't make it happen, so I'm on my way.
I have not thought about this yet going into this finals feels ceremonial, so my brain is already in the off season. There's not many permutations of superstars forming alliances that I can really put together as easily as I could in previous years. And it has to do with age, like Kawhi, PG, LeBron, AD. Like, these guys are all kind of on the other side of their peaks. So it's not as juicy to me. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of...
Well, I mean, there just aren't great free agents this year either.
No, yeah.
Or even next year for the most part. I mean, I saw people saying that, Philly should just do nothing and wait for Tobias Harris's money to come off and then, like, go out there and use 2024 free agency to, get the team back up and running. I'm like, but who?
Yeah.
Siakam? Is that it? Is that the plan is Siakam or bust? I don't know. I look at this and, to your point, I think it's just the way that some of these draft classes worked, the way that people's extensions worked, where there just aren't a lot of big names that are floating around. And those guys like Austin Reeves or Cam Johnson, they're going to make like $25 million a year or something.
Yo, Cam's going to make big
money. There's like 7-8 teams with a lot of money to spend. And like, they're going to spend it, or they're going to spend a lot of it, or they're going to justify an overpaying of someone like a Cam Johnson and say, like, look, we know he's not a superstar, but he's a valuable young player, and if we offer him $24 million a year, Brooklyn's not going to match it. So we'll just overpay him by like $6 million, and we'll get him.
I quite like him. Yeah, I think in a dry free agent desert, I think Cam Johnson might be worth a little bit of an overpay. quickly, there was rumors from Philly Twitter that it seemed like Nick Nurse was assuming James Harden was gone. Do you think there's any truth to this vibe?
I have no idea. I mean, I think when he was asked, does he want James Harden back? And he was just like, James Harden's a great player. Like, yeah, but do you want him back? And try to like really pin him down on it. And I think he ultimately said, like, yeah, sure, of course.
Yeah.
He's just not trying to step on the front agent or the front office's feet either. Where if James Harden leaves and like, yeah, but you wanted him back, are you disappointed that he left? You know, like he kind of has to be impartial here. He doesn't want to offend Harden. He doesn't want to offend Morey, and he also has no say in this.
And also, a shock jock asked him, so like whatever.
Right. But I just mean he has no say in what happens with James Harden. So to plant a flag in the ground and say, "Here's what I want," when on your first day as a coach, like you can't answer that question in a frank way.
No.
You have to be like, "He's great. Oh, yeah, I'd love to coach him." You know, sure, but you can't say we need him back or it's cool if he bounces. He can't take a stand on that.
My question wasn't how nuanced and well Nick Nurse handled that. My question was, what do the Sixers do if Harden leaves? Maybe that's a better way.
Well, there's been some talk about Fred VanVleet, who's like a pretty good player. He was not great last year. His three-point ball kind of deserted him.
He's a small guy too, so his effectiveness can fall off a cliff perhaps.
He's a pretty good defender. Well, he's got great hands, but I'm not sure how the pairing of him and Maxey in the backcourt really works, just because they're both like about 6 feet tall. Maxey might be 6'2", he might be 5'11" or 5'10", but that would be the smallest backcourt in the league, I would guess, just offhand.
His whirling dervish excellence is kind of just through age and injuries. He is not the same like crafty player that he was when he signed that contract.
You know, he was a really exceptional player at generating threes. I feel like it was like him and Simmons were the ones leading the league often on an annual basis in terms of just being able to like drive into the lane, kick the ball out, find shooters. Like he was a very good facilitator in terms of that specific skill. But yeah, I don't know that he's that same player now. At any rate, you know, going from a Harden to him is obviously a downgrade, and honestly, even defensively, just because Harden at least is big and Harden can guard several positions, even if he is not, you know, an elite defender by any means. He's still like 6'5". Yep. He's a secondary rebounder. He can guard in the post. VanVleet and Maxey just feels extremely vulnerable to like people just raining threes over your closeouts.
I think the stock in Maxey as like a future star is really tough. We see how tough it is in Boston, right? It's like Jaylen Brown is a superstar. It's like, if you keep on saying it, he's not going to become one. Maxey is an awesome player. I'm a huge fan. But Maxey and VanVleet is like not scary.
No, and Maxey, to me, is a role player. He just might be a high scoring one.
Right.
You know, if he could have a bigger role as a scorer. I just haven't seen enough from him as a facilitator to believe that he could be a lead guard in terms of running the whole offense through him. You know, statistically speaking, he's been so much better with Harden on the court because Harden can set him up for open looks, which then he can use his quickness to attack closeouts, and he's become an extremely good three-point shooter, especially from the corners. But I just don't know at this stage whether you can say, you know what, Maxey, you are our point guard. I don't know. No. I think it's possible, but when I view him, I view him as a scorer, not really a table setter, if you will.
Yeah. Well, you know what I view as a scorer. This damn pod.
This damn pod. Gosh.
Oh no!
Cookies.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.